they were just some of the neatest critters on earth. They made me smile every day. Today I was watching a red-breasted nuthatch come into the feeder on the window here, and he gave me a smile that lasted all day. Just seeing that tiny, beautiful little bird come in there, it was incredible. Well, one day I'm looking outside, and there's the chickadees coming in to the feeder. And you know how they are. They come in to grab a seed, they fly away, come in, another one comes in. And you can't tell how many of them are. I always tried to count them, but I'd lose track because I couldn't tell them apart. They were caching seeds somewhere. I probably didn't know that. But all I knew was I loved that little bird. And then I had an idea. I was probably 10, somewhere around in there. It's probably the first idea I ever had, but I thought it was a dandy. So I went down to the barn. I got a broken pitchfork handle. It still had the pitchfork on there with 2 tines and a little short bit of handle on there. And I got a couple straw bales that I pulled away from the house, and I stacked them up one on top of the other one. So it was about the height of a man. And I took that broken pitchfork and I shoved the tines into the top of the straw bale. And then I got a handy Andy work glove, one of those yellowish orange things. And I stuck that on the broken handle. I wrapped it with baling twine so it was in place. And then I went to the local feed store and I used some money that I helped bale hay and some things with the neighbors. And I bought gray striped sunflower seed because that's what we had back there in the feed store. And I took that and I sprinkled a little bit of it in the palm of that glove. Then I went back in the house and I let it sit that way for the better part of a week. Pretty soon the little chickadees were coming in and they were taking the seeds right out of that glove and flying away with them. And there was just a steady stream of them. And I had a plan. Because that weekend, it was going to be a gathering of the clan. My dad was one of 12 kids. I had 51 first cousins on that side of the family. And they were pretty much all coming out to the Batt farm. And they were coming out there because we were the only ones that moved to Minnesota. Everybody else lived in Iowa. And my mom was a good cook. So they're all coming there. So my plan was on Sunday when they're all there. I had a great plan. I was going to fool them because they'd all be in the kitchen because my mom was that good a cook. You wanted to get stuff right when it came out of the oven. You wanted rosettes and things. You wanted to get them warm. While they're all doing that, I went outside and I put those 2 straw bales back. I chucked that broken pitchfork handle with the 2 tines left on the fork. I threw that out of the way, took that handy Andy work glove and put it on my hand. And then I stood as perfectly still as a 10-year-old boy can. And I put some of those gray straight sunflower seeds in the palm. It weren't but a minute, as Barney Fife would say, or Andy, it weren't but a minute that little chickadees started flying in there and grabbing seeds and flying away. Once in a while they stop and look at me with that beady little eye saying, I wonder if he's edible, but we'll eat these seeds in the meantime. And I have banded chickadees, folks. They are the sweetest looking little things, but I've held them in my hand. I band blue jays, they give up. But when I band these little chickadees, that little bill just goes, and it goes all around and bites all the way around my hand. And if I have a scab or something there, it rips that off and says, how do you like that, buddy? There's more where that comes from. And I try not to say poop on any Zoom things, but they poop enough. There's enough methane in there. I could heat my whole house on the methane from about 3 chickadees, I reckon. If they were the size of chickens, none of us would dare go outside. That's how they are. So anyway, I'm feeding these little guys and inside the house, they're just revolving around. They all want to stay near the oven, but they have to move because there's other bodies pushing them. So somebody looked out the window and there I was standing there feeding the chickadees from my hand. And one of them pointed and said, look there. The boy's feeding them little birds right out of his hands. And they all said, oh, let me see. And they're all looking. They said, I've never seen anything like that before. Then my Uncle Vern was the first one that dared suggest it. He got up there and he said, you know how uncles are. They just kind of clear their throat and everybody's supposed to be quiet. He says, you know, you know what the boy is? I've seen things like this before. You know what the boy is? And they all said, boy, we have no idea. He said, that boy is a genius. That's what he is. I've seen it before. He's a genius. My older sibling said, you know, that wasn't even on our list of things that we thought he might be. Genius. No, that wasn't on there at all. I don't think he could spell genius. And Uncle Vern says, I know these things. He's a genius. When I came into the house, people treated me different. They treated me like I was a genius. They asked questions of me that I didn't have any idea what the answer was. I didn't know what they were talking about, but I'd throw something out there for an answer and they'd all kind of nod and say, boy, we never thought of it that way before. I suppose that makes sense because you are a genius. It was a glorious day. For that one wonderful day, I was a genius and everybody treated me like a genius. And then on Monday, I brought home my report card and dispelled any notion that I might be a genius of any kind. But I love chickadees. Y'all, to this day, the black-capped chickadee is my favorite bird. I love all the chickadees. We have boreal chickadees here in Minnesota. I don't care where I see the chickadees. If it's a chickadee, I want to look at it. I was out in Colorado looking at mountain chickadees. I love chickadees, and I think it's because of that day. But is it my spark bird? I don't think so, because I saw chickadees all the time when I was growing up. I saw them I used to go down to Grandma Batt's down in Iowa to see cardinals because we didn't have many around. We had, well, I can say not many. I can say we had none at the farm. We never saw cardinals. We had to go to the golf course in Albert Lee, Minnesota, the big city that 15,000 or something. That's where we'd see cardinals. But I want to tell you the story of my spark bird. Again, I was the baby of the family. I wanted to do everything that the older kids got to do because that's the job of the baby, is to whine around and say, I wanna, and why can't I, and this, and just pester your parents so they get rid of you. And, you know, otherwise they just kept having kids. They'd had 18 kids. So I served a purpose there. So I wanted to drive the tractor. I wanted to do combining corn. I wanted to plant corn. I wanted to milk the cows all by myself. And my dad would say, you know, you're just too young. I said, well, my brothers and sisters, they get to do it all. And he says, well, they're bigger and they're older than you are. And I said, they'll always be older than I am. That's how it works. I never catch up to them. And he says, look, one day I'll be wanting you to do chores and you won't want to do them. You'll be a teenager and you'll say, I don't want to do chores. I want to go play ball. Or I want to go chase girls or something. He said, those are noble ambitions, but you won't want to do chores. So just be happy for the time when you don't have to do chores, because you will have to do them before you want. And I said, no, but I want to do them now. I want to do them. He said, look, I'll give you a job. It's an entry-level position. And you have to do it. If you don't do it, we won't be able to milk the cows. It all come down to you. It's an entry level and there is room for advancement. Are you willing to do this? I said, sign me up. And he said, the job is yours. Your job will be to go and get the cows and bring them up for milking. If you don't bring the cows up for milking, it's going to be real hard to milk them because they won't be here. You understand that? I said, yes. He said, just nod. I said, I'm nodding. He said, I can hear the rattling, so I believe you. So it's your job. You start tomorrow night. Because I didn't get to do it in the morning because I had to go to school and everything and not smell like a barn. So that night, I went to get the cows. And we had, it wasn't a big farm, 250 acres, but about half of it was a marsh and woods. And that's where we pastured the cattle. So we had a herd counting the young ones and everything, about 60 cows, and they were Holsteins. We milked Holsteins, big black and white cows, and then we milked Halfsteins. They're about half the size of the Holsteins. We got whole milk out of the Holsteins and then half and half out of the Halfsteins. I apologize for those you aren't farming, because that was a fib right there. We had Holsteins. So I would go get the Holsteins and drive them up. And I didn't do the job all by myself because I had my faithful canine companion, Rex. She was there helping me. I loved Rex. She was a Haines 57. We knew the mother, but the father was an anonymous giver that we never had the pleasure of meeting. But Rex was an A plus class cattle dog. She just, all you had to do was say sick 'em, and she went and got them. You had to be careful you didn't say something like sick 'em, because she went and got the cows. So every day we'd go out and get the cows. We'd wander around and I'd see the cows, and then I'd say sick 'em, and she'd go get them. It was wonderful. Sick 'em, she'd go get them. So we're out there, we're getting them. And do y'all remember the first time you learned that you were really good at something? You were just good at something. You were just, baseball, cooking, knitting, canoeing, whatever it was. You were good at it, and you just would stride the earth like a colossus. I was good at finding cows. I didn't give enough credit to Rex because she was really good, but I was good. My dad would brag to the neighbors, you ever lose cows, I'll send a boy out there. He can find them. And the secret was I learned to think like a cow. And then I would go, I'd say, if I was a cow, where would I be? And then I'd go there, and there they were. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. I loved going to get the cows, and my dad, he would smile. I just felt big. And you know how it is when you get so good at something, sometimes you get a little cocky. I remember playing basketball, and we were pretty good, and we were playing a team that wasn't very good, and we thought we'd just mop up the floor with them. Well, you can imagine what happened. So I probably got that way, but I'm walking with Rex, and I'm looking everywhere where the cows are. I looked everywhere because they had certain places they went. And I looked here, I looked there, I looked over there, I looked everywhere. I looked under every rock. I turned over rocks looking for 60 cows. And finally, my dog found a rabbit. And all of a sudden she's going, brr, brr. She's chasing a rabbit. She's no longer a cow dog. She's a rabbit dog now. She deserted me. And I'm looking around and around and around, and I'm thinking, where would those cows be? And you all know where everything is that we're looking for. It's in the last place we look, isn't it? Because why would we look any further? But in our house, the last place you look for things are in the junk drawer. I bet you all have one in your house. There's a federal law that you're supposed to have a junk drawer. And how do you tell if it's a junk drawer? If you can't open it because there's a roll of duct tape or something that bars the opening, and you have to shake it for a while, and then something falls out the back, and then you can open it. So I thought, where would the junk drawer be out here? Then all of a sudden I thought there was a little spit of land. It's about 3 acres that nobody wanted. And the fence was on the other side. So we kind of got it. We didn't own it. Nobody owned it. Nobody ever went there, let alone cows. They'd have to go around the edge of fields and everything, get there. And I thought, I'll just look down there. And I looked down there, and right there in the corner, there they were. There was that entire herd of cows way out there. I don't know why they were there. I know cows are a lot smarter than I ever gave them credit for. Maybe they were trying to hide. And I looked at them about this time. Here comes my dog back. Her tongue is hanging out. I said, did you catch the rabbit? And she said, no, next time. I'll get him next time. And she put up a big L on her forehead, loser, referring to me because I couldn't find the cows. And I said, Rex, I have found the cows. And she said, no way. And I said, they're right over there. And I pointed. You know, the Zoom things are always tough for guys like me because I'm a hand talker. I bet a lot of you are, and you throw your hands up all the time. So I had my wife duct tape them to my knees before I went on, but then she left. So I was able to free myself. I pointed at those cows. I said, there they are, Rex. Can you see them? They're right there. You see the cows? And she says, I got them, boss. I see them. And I said, are you ready? She said, I am locked and loaded. And I said those magic words that she longed to hear. I said, sick 'em. And she went, boom. She went it was a blur. You couldn't tell if it was a dog or what it was, but she's hidden out there, and the cows are all over there chewing their cud. They just chew it's like bazooka bubble gum to a cow. And they're talking about cow things. I don't know what they talk about, but I'm sure they're talking about things. And they look over and one says, "Is that the dog?" And the other one said, "I don't think the dog could find us here. It wouldn't know we're here." So it sure looks like the dog. And pretty soon Rex is just there and she just starts nipping them in the heels. And they all take off and they start running to where? To the barn, because that's where they're supposed to be. They know they're supposed to be in the barn. They just like to fool with us. So Rex is chasing them and she's nipping them. And it's like a buffalo herd. The ground is shaking and they go rushing by me. My dog looks up at me and says, see you in the barn, boss," and gave me a paw up. I was her hero now again. And I'm just standing there thinking life is good, because I was worried if I couldn't find these cows, one day I'd be applying for a job. I'd be going up to one of these skyscrapers and I'd be sitting in this room and the hirer would be looking through my list, the resume, the pack of lies it was, and he'd be saying, "Hey, it looks pretty good, Mr. Batt, except here it says you couldn't find an entire herd of cows. Is that true?" And I'd say, "Well, it was just at one time." He would crumble up my resume and throw it in the wastebasket and say, "Don't call us. We'll be in touch with you." I was worried about that for nothing. Now I'm a hero again. Man, I am cow finder supreme. And then I looked off in the corner. There was a post in the corner and there was a white thing on top of the post. I figured it was about 6 foot tall. It looked like it was 6 foot tall from where I was looking. And I thought, what is that? Now, I needed to see what it was. So I started walking a little bit closer. I'm not walking towards the barn. I'm walking away from the barn. I'm walking away to that white thing that's on that post. And I get up a little closer and I can see it is 6 feet tall, I'd say at least. And it's pulsating sort of. Now, as a kid, we had the Passion Pit here, and I know you guys did out there too. It was a drive-in movie theater, and we called it a Passion Pit because it was like a second date kind of place for teenagers. Dad would load everybody in the car, and you go down there, and you go and you drive up, and had a little speaker. You had to roll the window down, hook it on the window, and roll it back up. And then you could listen to it. The problem was every time we got in there, it was kind of a stormy night. Sooner or later, it's going to rain a little bit. So then he had to fire up the windshield wipers. And you had to start the car to do that. Otherwise, they wouldn't go. So then you got the wipers going, beep, 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 beep. And you had to keep the windows cracked down for those speakers. And then the mosquitoes would get in the Pontiac. We had a 1953 Pontiac Chieftain, black one, straight 8 engine with a headed Chief Pontiac, glowing in amber hue as we went down the road. So now we can't hear because it's going, beep, 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 beep. And there's mosquitoes everywhere in there. But I remember those scary movies. They'd have Dawn to Dusk. I never made it that late, couldn't stay awake that long. But they had the scary movies like Mothra, this giant moth that destroyed Tokyo. But you could see wires hanging down to it so it could fly. And then we'd see all the Frankenstein and Dracula. And the ghost ones scared me because every night when I went to sleep, my sister Georgiana read a bedtime story by Edgar Allan Poe to me. There wasn't enough hay in this world to feed all the nightmares I had from Edgar Allan Poe. So when I looked and I saw the thing in the corner, I said, that is a Haines. That's a ghost right there. I knew there were ghosts. That's a ghost. But I had to see it because there's something, we like being scared up to a point. So I'm walking down there, I get a little closer and I don't want to look at it, but I still want to look at it. So I'm looking at it with one eye and thinking it probably won't see me. And it's going, and then I can see something that it has feathers. It has feathers. I didn't know that ghosts had feathers. But then I'm thinking, why wouldn't birds have ghosts? If we have ghosts, why wouldn't a bird have a ghost? It just seems fair. Equal opportunity for ghosts, I would think. And I take one more step to get a little closer, and I stepped on one of the branches that fell from a bur oak tree, and it went crack. My stomach raced up to my throat, and I jumped in the air and spun all the way around. I spun all the way around and headed back towards the barn. My feet couldn't have touched the ground more than 2 or 3 times on the way home. I thought Rex ran fast. She wouldn't have had a prayer against me. I was like Wile E. Coyote with those jet-powered roller skates. I just went boom all the way home, and I go zooming into the barn. There's my dad. My dad has a dad face. I'll bet all you dads out there have made it. We try to act like we're mad and everything at kids, and then they say something stupid and we end up laughing and can't stay mad at them. But my dad had that face. He'd practice it, and he turned around and he saw me there. He saw me and he pointed at me and he said, "You." Well, there wasn't anybody else there. It was just me. But yet I said, "Me, Dad? Me? And he said, "Where have you been? The dog came back. The cows came back. Your mother's at Circle. I don't know where your brothers and sisters are. Nobody knows where they are anymore, but I counted on you to be here. You took 3 years off my life." Folks, I took 3 years off my father's life on a regular basis. I think pretty much once a week, I took 3 years off. He'd be living yet today. He'd be about 140, but he'd be living here today if I hadn't taken those 3 years off. So I'm trying to catch my breath, and my dad is going on. He said, "Where have you been? You better have a good excuse why you're late. I worried sick about you." And I said, "Dad, I saw it. I saw it." And he said, "What'd you see?" I said, "It was about 6 feet high, Dad. 6 feet high." He said, "What was 6 feet high?" I said, it was a white thing going, vroom, vroom, vroom. It was pulsating, I think it was what it was. He said, "Well, what was that?" I said, "And it was 6 feet high. Did I tell you it was 6 feet high?" He said, "You told me it was 6 feet high." He said, "What was it?" I said, it was a ghost owl." I said, "What?" I knew about ghost owls because my Uncle Bill was a barber in Batt, Iowa for 62 years. I went in there and the beetles were big. I wanted long hair, and my dad would drag me down there and say he needs his haircut. My Uncle Bill specialized in one kind of haircut. It was called a buzz cut. So I'd sit down, I'd say, "Bill, if I could just have a little long hair." He said, "I've been cutting hair before you were born. You don't have to tell me how to cut hair." I said, "Okay, but he said, "I'll cut it." And he's up there, and then he starts telling the story. And the longer his story got, the shorter my hair got. But while he was doing it, he had a white owl cigar in his mouth, puffing away. And the barbershop had its own atmosphere. There were clouds everywhere from the cigar smoke while he's going, and then you won't believe what Maynard did then. Well, I didn't know who Maynard was. I was just worried. All that hair on the floor, that was mine. And sooner or later, he'd swing me around. And he said, "How do you like that? Pretty good?" I looked like a skinned muskrat. There was no hair left. And I come out, and my mom says, "Oh, honey, it will grow back." So I knew there were white owl cigars because Uncle Bill, to make up for cutting my hair so short, gave me the box they came in, and I used it to put my Milwaukee Braves cards in. So there we are. I told my dad it was a ghost owl. And my dad, who loved milking cows, but he hated being in the barn late because he had to get up and be there at 5 in the morning. He put the cows in the stanchions, and he and I and my dog Rex, we walked all the way back down to where that ghost owl was. And you've all guessed what it was. It was a snowy owl. We'd never seen a snowy owl before. I didn't know there were snowy owls. We didn't have Harry Potter to tell us all about owls. We went down there and we stood for about an hour and a half when we should have been in the barn, with my dad speculating why that owl is there and why it's white and what a wondrous thing we're seeing, son. He said, "You will remember this for the rest of your life." And I thought, boy, that's got to be like a couple 100 years, Dad. I don't know if I can remember, but he was right. we walked back and we milked those cows, but we didn't talk about how much milk they were given, what the best cow was, what we're going to do tomorrow. We talked about that ghost owl, that snowy owl. That's all we could talk about was that owl. And the next day, the whole family went to the Carnegie Library in town. We walked in there. They had the library. And as soon as I walked in there and the floor creaked a little bit, they went, shh. I got shushed before I had a chance to say a word. I had that big chief notebook, that rag paper notebook, and then I had a Ticonderoga yellow #2 pencil. And I went over to the section where all the encyclopedias were. I don't know how many different sets I had, but they were everywhere there. So I took down the O's from everyone. I took down an O. I took down an O. And I looked up owls. And sooner or later, I got to snowy owls. And I find kind of why they were here. They said they probably came south some winters because they were hungry. Now we found, haven't we, that they come south because there's too many owls up there some years, because there's too many lemmings. So they have a lot more eggs and they raise a lot more. So they just, but I didn't care so much why they came down. I just was happy they came to where they came, to our farm. You might have said that we were starved for entertainment, but we had relatives over, we had the neighbors over. There was a little slant of a hill there, and we would picnic. We'd watch that owl. It was there for about a week. It was just great. We were all there and we just had the best time watching that owl and eating our sandwiches and saying, man, that is something. Nobody had a camera that could reach there. We had opera glasses. I tried looking. Grandma Soonstrom gave me opera glasses because I like to look at birds. I think she used it to look at the Metropolitan Opera on the radio. And so I was a birder with opera glasses. They had a nice handle on them and I looked pretty classy, but I think they made the birds farther away. It didn't seem to help at all. I'd look through them. But that was some of the best times of my life, sitting there with everybody. And whether, I'm sure I didn't know it, and I doubt my dad knew it, but he set my life's path that day. That was my spark bird. I had no idea what a spark bird was, but my dad, he had no idea what a spark bird was. But I think he knew that birds were important to me the way I was entertained by chickadees. And he knew that he should spend that extra time with me looking at that bird. Oh, it was a glorious life. You know, isn't it funny how we remember things so well from our past? I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I can remember that day like it was yesterday because it had such an impact on me. It was a wonderful day. I wish it could go on. You know, we always talk about if you could go back and relive a day. Oh, you know, the day I got married, the day I first became a father, and those would all certainly be in there. They'd be at the top. But right in that top, however many you make, would be the day the snowy owl came to visit us. And I remember the day he left, and we all just hoped wherever he was going, we hoped it wasn't Iowa. You know, that was a big thing, Minnesota and Iowa. There's a little competition there. So we thought, well, wherever he goes, I hope he doesn't go south and go to Iowa. He shouldn't be doing that. He looked like a Minnesota owl and deserves to stay in Minnesota. Now I see a snowy owl most years down here. We used to have a big festival up north, the Sax-Zim Bog Festival. We'd go up there and see great gray owls and snowy owls and hawk owls, once in a while a boreal owl. And they were all so beautiful. They were just breathtakingly beautiful, those big eyes and that almost human-like face that makes us think they're wise like we are. But there wasn't one there that was near as beautiful as that first snowy owl I saw. I wanted to give him a name, but I thought, well, he probably has a name and he's not going to come if I call him anyway. But it was the best day, the best day. I hope all of you have a day like that, and I'm sure you have. It's that one bird that makes us want to see more birds. Ever since that day, my mom bought me a Capper's Weekly field guide, mom and my one sister, and I could see all those. They had a little paragraph. They were just line drawings with a little paragraph under each one. And then my third grade teacher, Crystal Sibrid, we had a little library in our little school. There's 15 in my class. We had this little library. And one day she called me. She said, I need to see you before you get on the bus to go home. I swallowed hard because that was never good news. It was like when they pinned that note onto your shirt, or it wasn't good. I always wanted to look at what those notes said, but I was afraid if I took the pin out, I wouldn't be able to get it back in the same hole. And then my mom would know that I'd read it and I'd be in trouble. But she said, I need to talk right before you leave. So I came in there and I was expecting the worst. I was trying to think what I'd done wrong. It'd probably been easier to think what I'd done right because I was a little boy. We did stuff wrong on a regular occasion. And she says, that book over there, that bird book, we're getting a new one. You're the only one that checks that one out. Why don't you take that home? That'll be your book and we'll get a new one. So don't worry about it. Little boys, it was just getting to that age, third grade, where you're not supposed to cry, but I think I did a bit. That just meant so much to me. And I got on the bus and took it home, and I put it on a side table where you put the keys and the bills and everything. And I sat it there, and I went down and helped with the milk and came back up, and my dad says, I thought you just took that bird book back. Didn't you just take that back to school? What do you get, 10 days, 2 weeks? I said, yeah. Didn't you take it back? I said, I took it back. He said, well, it doesn't look like you took it back. Can you check it out right away? And I said, no, he said, you need to take that book back. I said, well, Mrs. Sibrid gave it to me. He said, look, we can't just have people giving us stuff all the time. He was a depression kid. So you understand that. And he said, you can't be just taking stuff. So you take that book back. Tell her we just don't take stuff. We're not destitute. So the next day I got on the bus. It was like the saddest day. And I sat up there. I didn't want to talk to my friends. And I got off the bus and went in, and I'm putting it back on the shelf. And Mrs. Sibrid says, Alan, I told you that book is yours. We're getting a new one. That's your bird book. And I said, well, my dad. And she said, oh, don't say anything more. That generation of farmers, she said, they're just so proud. They're awful proud is what they are. She said, what he's saying? I said, my dad said, we don't just take things from people. If we start doing that, it'll never end. And she said, oh. So I'll tell you what, I'll sell it to you. Would that make him happy? I said, I bet it would. I bet it would. And she said, well, what do you have? I reached in my pocket. I had 2 pennies and a button off my shirt. She said, that is the exact price I'm asking for that. And you can keep the button. I have all the buttons I need. So I gave her the 2 cents. She gave me the book. I got on that bus with a big smile and smiled all the way home, ran into the house, put that book right on the side table so my father would see it. I wanted to make sure he saw it. And he saw it. Oh, he had an eye like a hawk, or maybe like a snowy owl. He came in, he said, Alan, how many times do I have to tell you? I told you to take that book back. And I said, I took it back. He said, I can see it right there. My eyesight isn't as good. I can't see into the grade school in Heartland. Now you take that book back. And I said, I bought it. He said, you did? Yeah, I paid for it. Well, good, son. I hope you learned a lesson here. He said, that's a nice book. And I'm glad you were able to buy it. If you couldn't have bought it, I'd have loaned you some money. I still have that book. It's held together with bits of duct tape, and I lost a couple pages. I don't know where they went, but I'm missing it. But, we talk about things that are priceless. That book is priceless to me. Mrs. Sibrid and my father, who was a wonderful man, that's just the way he was growing up, where you just didn't take things from people for no reason without doing work or something. And I appreciate everything. I was lucky. I bet like a lot of you are. I had great parents and I had great teachers. I look back on them now, and I didn't always realize how great my teachers were during the time I had them. And I tried to thank them all. and fumbled my way through it, but sent them all a postcard while they were all still alive, because I figured it wouldn't do much good to send it to them when they're already gone, but just to thank them and thank them for what they did and for making me what little I've become. And I want to thank all of you. I'd love to hear what your favorite bird is. And boy, if you have a question, I can't imagine what you'd have a question about, because I covered pretty much everything in there. So it's what I can tell you what's going on here in Minnesota. We have a lot of pheasants in my yard because we've had a persistent snow cover. It's been a pretty nice winter. Our winters are warming. I just spoke to the state climatologist, and they hit you with all kinds of records. So by the end, you're kind of confused, but we've certainly been warming. So we have pheasants under our bird feeders, and you always feel bad kind of feeding them, but if I don't feed them, they go out onto the roads, and I think they're better off being in the back of my house somewhere eating. We have a rough-legged hawk, a beautiful black bird with a white band. He is so lovely, and he's hunting on a fence here. I watch him go down, catch a vole, and then he perches on just like the tiniest branches that would not hold a red-tailed hawk, but it'll hold this guy. And when I was a boy, I called them the Christmas hawks, because we saw them around Christmas time every year, and then they left. So I'm seeing a bunch of those. And Sandy's story about the bluebirds, I've seen a couple bluebirds in January here, came to our waterers and then left. We have a lot of robins here, but they spend all winter here. I find them feeding hackberries. They love hackberries, so up there. And they're still avoiding high bush cranberry. They don't like the taste of that yet. But they're here, and they're in large flocks. And some scientists, and I shouldn't say this without remembering his name, but he says we have winter robins here in Minnesota, and then we have migratory robins in Minnesota, and they might be genetically different because they don't seem to breed. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's neat to see a robin. So when we get a flock blows in of 500 of them or so, I do a radio show, and it just lights up with people reporting robins. And why? Because we all want that to be the sign of spring. I tell them the sign of spring is the little chickadees doing the spring's here. Sweetie, love you. Woodpeckers drumming on a resonant branch. White-breasted nuthatches going, and squirrels chasing one another and pre-mating behavior. Bald eagles restructuring nests, red-tailed hawks sitting side by side in a tree. The smell of skunk in the air, that's a sign of spring right there. And I know there are people that like the smell of skunk. I've been sprayed by a lot of them for various reasons, mostly stupidity. And there's some of them that really love the smell of skunk, and I'm not one of them. But I'd love somebody, Kevin, you love chickadees. I thought Kevin Crow, you might have to love crows. So thanks for loving chickadees. Appreciate that. I want state bird here is the loon, and I want the chickadee be the co-state bird, because the loons leave us, the chickadees stay here. And if they need a bird to testify before the state legislature, the chickadees would be available in the wintertime, and the loons would not. Oh, Mary, you're awfully kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, you're very welcome, Kevin. Thank you. You're the nicest folks. So, I tell everybody, is my wife a birder? She is, and she's so much nicer and smarter than I am. I married up. I just, my older siblings used to say, Alan, you will never get married. And I said, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, who would marry you? Look at you. It's the only way you'll ever get married is if you go up, but wait outside the women's state prison on parole day and just wait for somebody to come out. And that's what I did. But she was innocent, proven innocent later. But I married, my brother Donald said, Alan, you skipped an entire species when you married your wife, so which might be good. So it's awfully nice of you to say. She is a great birder, yes. And not so likely to be out when it's 33 below zero as I was. Kevin, you grew up in White Bear Lake. I get up there, yeah, the polars get up there quite a bit. So I can't read it all. Kathleen, do I have an opinion about? I lose it here. If somebody could help me on that.
Sure. The question is, do you have an opinion about the possible existence of the ivory-billed woodpecker?
I am the world's greatest optimist, so I am still holding out hope. But you have to kind of bring science into it. And yet I have a lot of friends that were down there canoeing around, and I always figured if anybody was going to find it, it would be that Batt that's been going down there. So I guess all I can say is I'm hopeful. I really am. I've been surprised by so many things that have happened in my life that nothing would surprise me. So I keep fingers crossed in the hopes. So, yeah.
Now, how many siblings did you have?
There were just 3 in mine. Yeah,
Oh.
we were the smallest of the. I don't know why that was, because we'd go over to my aunts and uncles, and they wouldn't even know you were there. They just, you'd eat and then get done meal time, and they said, Alan, have you been here the whole meal? Because there were so many kids around. They just didn't know. Mine, we knew when somebody was gone. So yeah, and great siblings.
Okay, so it looks like you looked through all the chats, right? I think everybody, if I reading what I read in the chat, and I know myself, you were just wonderful. Somebody already wants you to schedule again.
Oh, well, Sandy, what's your spark bird?
Well, actually, my spark bird was a mourning dove, which sounds sort of strange, but I had a lot of nature exposure growing up, and out in the woods and this and that. And actually, I went to Girl Scout camp, and like you said, it was a nature unit one year, and they got us up, like the second day there, got us up at 5 in the morning and put us in the back of a truck and took us on a bird walk, or showing birds. We all complained about it. But I do remember the guy going, now that's a red-winged blackbird. And I remember thinking, that's a bird I could remember. And I remember liking that. But then we just complained, oh, this is dumb. But when I got my first house, and something in me decided to put up a bird feeder. I don't know why, I just did. I put up a bird feeder, and we're next to a big church, and these birds come, and I'm trying to figure out what they are. And my husband keeps saying, Sandy, they're pigeons. They're pigeons. They didn't quite look like a pigeon. And somehow my sister had given me a bird book, Little Golden Guide bird book. And I spent a week determining that it wasn't a pigeon, that it was a mourning dove. And that process was so I just love the process. And then the next bird was it's now called a common flicker. I liked it when it was red-shafted flicker. And I saw one of those birds on the ground. It has spots, it has a mustache, it's got red, it's got yellow. I called the Greenberg Nature Center. I've got a rare bird in my yard. Describe it. Oh, that's just a flicker. It's not rare, but I haven't been looking. So those 2 birds, never mind the red-winged blackbird, early on was a little nibble. It all came back to me, and it's been going ever since. I've been crazy about identifying the birds and just liking the birds no matter what. So
the mourning dove was my mother's favorite bird. So
yeah.
She loved that mournful sound. So
yeah. Well, my other story is we're visiting friends, and I had become a birder, and we're sitting with these friends, and we're sitting here on the porch, and the guy who lived there sitting looking at us, and I hear an owl, and I go, I hear an owl. I'm a birder now, and I'm listening all the time. I hear an owl. And my friend Bill goes, Sandy, I don't think so. I think that it's a bird up there, and I don't think it's an owl. It doesn't look like an owl. I said, I'm a birder and I know an owl when I hear one. Yeah, I don't really think so. So I get up, I go look, it's the mourning dove.
Oh,
And I look it up in the bird book and it says often mistaken for an owl. So anyway. I don't know if anybody else wants to say, unmute yourself and tell your spark bird. That would be fun. That would be fun. I think most of us have one, right? Anybody want to do that? How about you, Carl? This is one of our young birders here. Do you have a spark bird?
Yeah, personally for me, some of you might know by just on Weaver Street, there's a little duck pond just near the end. And every day from when I was like a little kid, I used to be first like brought there in my stroller just like to get some fresh air every day. And then I just like go on walks on my own. And at some point I started seeing every day in the spring and summer, like to a creek near the back, there was a beautiful like black-crowned night heron. I'd follow it every day.
oh,
And that was probably like my first real bird that got me like fascinated in birding. From there, I went and like checked out books from the library. And from that point in, I think it was 5th grade on, I loved birding.
Yeah,
oh.
wonderful.
Neat story, Carl. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And fascinating. I hope you know that I've been here. I've just been like kind of out of the camera, but these stories have been fascinating. And thank you so much for being here and hosting this presentation.
Oh,
Somebody
thank
said
you.
they can't unmute themselves. Susan 7. Is anybody having trouble unmuting?
I'll unmute everyone.
Oh, okay, good. See if that works. Remember, that was the whole thing when we, in the beginning, we're trying. Susan, we're trying to unmute you.
Okay, I think everyone should be able to unmute themselves.
Yeah, that's working now.
Okay, so Susan, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Susan, let's hear from Susan.
Yeah, Suzanne
Suzanne.
Servin, yeah. I'm calling from New York. What is a spark bird?
Okay, that's a very good
That
question.
is a good question. It's that one bird that you see. It's the simplest way. It's be the one bird you see one day that makes you want to see other birds like that, other birds in general. It just sparks your
Oh,
interest
okay.
in
All right.
birds.
It
Yeah,
sparks the birding idea.
that's right.
Okay,
Right.
all right, okay.
Right.
I thought it was a special bird.
So Al, I don't know if
Yeah.
you can hear me.
I can't.
So what do you think about the occipiters? I'm a red-tailed hawk person. When I look up in the air and see them gliding in the sky, it is just absolutely, it's like heaven. I can't explain it. It's this metaphysical thing. What do you think about them? I know they're they're tough birds to love, but I absolutely love them.
There are no bad birds. You know, I get asked that a lot. I think they're all wonderful and just doing what they do. Red-taileds are beautiful, beautiful birds. And they say today I saw 2 of them perched side by side on a dead branch because it's once
Wonderful.
Valentine's Day hits, that's
There you go.
I
It's,
love red-tailed hawks. And you know, if you watch some of the old cowboy movies and old movies, you would see eagles or turkey vultures flying in the air, and they made the sound of red-tailed hawks,
Right,
that
absolutely.
whistle. So their whistling call is so beautiful, and it strikes us as how a raptor should sound, I guess. So they would dub them into all those old movies. Because when I was a little kid, I'd say, well, that's not vultures, that's a red-tailed hawk calling. And it was like hearing the Kookaburra and Tarzan movies. I'd say, well, Tarzan has really good hearing if he can hear that. But no, I'm right with you. I love red-tailed hawks too.
they're just majestic. It's just unbelievable. And you just can't imagine with so do they come to you guys up what, summertime, springtime, or I'm in New York and, we see them a lot in the fall. So how's Minnesota seeing them? How do
We
you get
have
them?
them all year.
You have them all year. Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time behind the wheel of my car and I count red-tailed hawks because I see them on post, utility poles, and I'm not the only one that does that. I talk to a lot of people and some of them don't even know what kind of hawk it is. They just count the hawks when they're driving around. So that's one of the things that is wonderful about them is that they're there and we can see them. My son Brian, when he was a little kid, liked house sparrows. That was his favorite bird. And I said, well, I like house sparrows, but you can't have as your favorite bird. You have to pick another bird. He said, no, I'm going to stick with the house sparrows. I said, how can you like house sparrows? He said, because whenever I want to see one, there's one there. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. So I said,
That's
yeah,
sweet.
you can have that as your favorite bird, I think.
Well, Kathleen, where in New York are you?
In Hudson Valley. So
Oh,
near
okay.
the Hudson River.
Oh,
And
yeah.
So
Well, I'm
that's
in
another,
down
where are
in
you?
Bronxville.
You're in Bronxville. I'm
Yeah, so
not
there
far
aren't
from
that-
you.
There aren't that many red-tailed hawks flying around here.
Oh, no, but over towards the Hudson, you can
Yeah.
see them.
I recently had to go up and down 684 for a couple of times. And so it's major, highway here. And every 5 miles, every 8 miles, there is a red-tailed hawk sitting there. And I thought, and today I did it again today, and there was at least 3 on my 20-mile trip north. And I thought if I was a poet, I could be able to describe. It's like they're in charge of watching they were like a soldier in charge or a general or, somebody, a military person. They're guarding all the way.
They're the
I don't know, maybe
traffic-
somebody can say it
And
better.
a
than I can.
traffic watch. Traffic
Hmm?
watch.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah, somebody's guarding. I really felt more like they were protecting me more than watching to see if I speeded. It was more, to me, it was like a protection. We got you covered. We're watching. And they're
Good.
just sitting there. And I know that, I think somebody said they're there because, the critters, the mice are running, they're running and they get to the road and then there's no place to go. So it's easier pickings there. And it also gets mowed there, right?
Yeah.
Al?
And yes, that's the reason. And it's like a post is a perfect hunting perch for them because there's not much blocking their view. So they can just look down and see any rodents moving around.
Right.
And one of the other things about red tails, they come in so many plumages.
Right.
It's just, they're all so different. They're just incredible.
So I moved away from New York about a year and a half ago, but I always remember that one of the big signs of spring was the ospreys setting up their nests on the cell tower on the Hutchinson River Parkway. So watching for those was always, okay, it's time.
Yes.
I think Violet has a question.
Where's Violet?
So I just want to say that hold on. Hi, so I'm Violet and I'm from the Bronx River Sound Shore Audubon, which is also New York, but right now I'm in Massachusetts in college. And I loved your entire talk. It was amazing. I read your book. Me and my mom actually read your columns in the Birdwatchers Digest, and we thought they were so funny. And I got your book and I recently read it and I finished it and I enjoyed every second of it. It was amazing.
What is your book? Tell me, what is your book? What is it called?
Al Batt's book, Life Gone to the Birds. It was amazing. It was a great book.
Okay.
So first of all, Violet is the one who's going to do the March program on the garlic mustard owl. She's going to be the one on foraging, or whatever. I don't know if any garlic mustard.
I lead
But
foraging tours with my dad in Westchester, and I've been bird watching ever since I was like 10 years old. So it's great.
Yeah.
Right. But she's the one, I think she and her mother, or one of you, I gave you credit in the beginning for, coming up with, to be able to use Al and ask Al. I don't know if you asked him, or I know Aaron was involved with the lining up the time and so forth, but I don't know if who got your contact. Maybe you read in the book, either you or your mom or both.
Yeah, I think his card in the book.
Yes.
His card.
Okay.
And the card said speaker, and we both enjoyed the
Yeah.
articles and books. So
Yeah.
so it's a good thing your card said speaker because that was a great idea.
And it was
Violet
spelled
Violet
correctly.
noticed that.
It was spelled correctly too. I'm an English major, so. Violet, thank
Yeah.
you so very much, man. You made, and I'd like to get a link when you're doing that. So if I'm around, I'd love to hear your presentation.
Yeah,
That
of
would-
course. That means so much to me. I would love to have you watch it.
That'd be great. And your words mean a lot. And Carol, I love seeing ospreys. What talented. I wish I could fish like they do. I like being on the water, but I like a pole with no hook or anything on. I don't want to catch anything, but maybe if I was an osprey, I might go after fish then. But yeah, they're beautiful. So thank you, Carol, and thank you, Violet.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
I'm Zach, fellow English major.
there you go.
Yeah. I'm just curious if there's a bird that you don't like, that has offended your sensibilities, that has hurt your feelings, and what your story is.
I wish I had a story about that. I like every bird. None of them has done anything to me personally. I guess other than a few times I've struck out where I'm trying to find a bird I hadn't seen before in my, especially in my home county here. I like seeing birds that I can drive to just really quick. And when I don't see one, one of them is a chat. We have a nemesis bird. I have never seen one in my home county. I've seen it in all little counties around it, but I've never seen it. And so now friends will call me and say, well, there's one there. You can't miss it. Well, yes, I can, because I go there and I don't hear anything. Chats are noisy all the time, except when I'm there, then they're shut mouth. So that would be the one bird, but I love chats. I haven't been able to see it. And you have to have, if you're a birder, you have to have a nemesis bird, one bird. So that keeps you going out there and looking. So in a way, I hope I never find one here, because then I'll keep looking everywhere. But great question. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
I shared that nemesis bird. We were looking for it for 2 years. It was in a park that was in our area, super local. And I went out for it every day and we couldn't find the chat. And then finally we went to a park in Connecticut and we got it, along with, in the same day we got the chat, a Western kingbird and a Western tanager. So
Oh my gosh.
super unusual for Connecticut and in the same day. So that was just incredible.
Wow.
So one of my nemesis birds was seeing an American bittern. I've been birder for 30 years at least. I had never seen one. And even my sister in Florida, who I got really super into birding, had seen one. And I'm birding with her in Florida, and somebody hooks up with us, and somehow in that thing, I told the lady we were looking for an American bittern, and she goes, "Oh, there's one." So I see my first American bittern. This is in Florida. Come back home. I belong to a golf club, a local golf club here. And that fall, an American bittern showed up in the golf club pond. So I didn't have to leave home. There was one, as local as you could be, showed up right in my own, having never seen one for 30 years. It was right in the Scarsdale Golf Club pond. So there you go. You never can tell.
My friend Bill Thompson and I used to lead birding tours to North Dakota, the prairie pothole area. And it's wonderful there. No traffic. You can stand in the middle of the road and look at birds because there's nobody there. And we had 2 bus loads, and we saw a least bittern. We'd heard it. So I'm telling everybody, our chances of seeing that bird are slim and none. So just listen to it. Well, I just got done saying that. Here it goes flying out of the reeds, and it's flying along, and everybody's going, "Oh my goodness, a least bittern," and it's flying, and then a great blue heron plucked it right out of the air and ate it.
Oh my God.
So it was everybody was shocked that they saw it, and then they were shocked that it was eaten right in front of them. But they came out of it with a story about the time some of it was their life least bittern, so they got to see it for just a little while. So
Al, what do you think about the shoebill stork?
yeah, it's
What is that? What is,
Yeah.
it's like, what is that bird?
Yeah, there's some odd birds in the world.
Ooh,
I'd always like to go some of the places to see a lot of the flightless birds, just to see some of those too. And you're just thinking, what is going on with this? Oh, there's just so many incredible birds in the world that you never run out of things to be amazed and excited about. Because you look at, and I try to find it in the commonplace birds. Because if I watch them long enough, a red-bellied woodpecker is going to do something that I never saw a red-bellied woodpecker do before. And I think every one of our birds, the more we look at them, people say you can look at 1,000 chickadees once, or you can look at one chickadee 1,000 times. And I'd be at that one chickadee 1,000 times to look at, because they're just so incredibly intriguing, amazing, and they give us a sense of wonder. And you folks know this, but one of the best things about people that enjoy nature and birds is that we are willing to be amazed. We have a great capacity for being amazed by things that I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people would just say, well, yeah, it's a bird. It's nice. I like birds. But to look at them enough to just be incredibly amazed, to have that sense of amazement. And some will say it's remaining childlike, and that's probably true, because as a kid, you're excited. I did a class, kindergartners, here a while back, and I'm a big guy, and I have trouble trying not to step on them because they get right up by you because we're looking at birds and things. But I came out of there and I told my wife, I want to be excited about everything in life like they are. They're just, and so it doesn't matter. They don't care what the name of a bird is, what kind it is. They just want to see it and just marvel at it. And they talk about, yeah, it was a bird with a red head. They don't remember that it was a red-bellied woodpecker. To them, it's just a bird with a red head. But what a joy to be in their company, and what a joy to be in your company. So thank you.
Okay, I think like I said, I didn't have dinner, and now I'm getting ready to whatever. So I think everybody will agree that it was just fabulous. We were, 15, 20 minutes into the thing by the time I remember to hit the stupid record button. So we recorded a lot of it, but not all of it, which we'll put on the website. And just thank you so much, Al.
Hey, thank you all. And boy, if anyone to get a hold of me at all.
Can I get your address? Because could I get your address? Anybody if you want to say it out loud, if anybody wants to send binoculars to you, but I just need your address.
Sure.
Or you want me to email it to me?
Oh no, I'm happy to get it to you. It's 71622 325th Street. Sounds like a huge city, doesn't it?
Yes, I thought you lived in a 325th Street. Okay.
I live on an old farm. Yeah. Heartland, Hartland, in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 56042.
Okay.
And anyone, you're free to email me too if you'd like. It's
okay. We can get you the email. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank everybody for joining in. I think we had 50 people at some point, most of the time. So it was terrific. Right. And maybe we'll have you back. Somebody wanted you back. I'd like to have you back. And I'm so happy. Do you think Birdwatchers Digest is going to do okay? Do you know how their numbers are, or you have any idea?
I don't. They have new owners, and they have great people working there. So I think
seems like it's as good, if not better. It looks good.
The other one, boy, when you talk about everything going against you, losing all the family, and then COVID hit.
Yeah, everything.
So there goes all your advertisers with COVID, and they couldn't do bird tours, and the sales of binoculars and everything. It was just everything conspired. It was sad. And, I'm a grandpa, so I cry now, and that made me cry.
Well, somebody else in the chat said they had a tear. I had a couple of tears, especially talking about your dad, because my dad was real special like that. He helped me get into all this. I have an Al story with my dad, so Anyway, okay, good night, everybody. Thank you so. I hope we'll see you next month. All right, are we good?
Sandy, can you
Thank
stay
you
on one
all.
sec?
Thank
Hey,
you.
you want me, Maria, stay on?
Thank you
Yeah,
so
stay
much.
one sec.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay.
We were just, Elizabeth was just going to stay a second to speak to us for a minute, Sandy.
Right. And then also we want to talk about the Purple Martin House.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Kevin, if you have time, you can stay too, of course.
Okay, I don't know, Jean and Susan.